Hello. Happy PWA year. How are you? We're going live today, and I'm really happy to have a special session with our friend Maxim. I hope that you're fine at home. And actually, we're doing something different today because, as you can see, we're testing different formats and which is the best way to help you and share with you some content. As usual, thanks for coming. This is gonna be recorded, so eventually we're gonna promote this later. If you have a friend or somebody else that is missing this, please feel free to share your thoughts and feedback after. And yes, welcome to our Samsung Internet Monthly Meetup. Before we start, I just want to share with you that we have some news regarding um, our blog. If you've been interested in what's going on with the web, coming soon, we're going to have some blog posts around what is going on with Samsung Beta 11.4. And besides that, we have really good news, as you can see here in my background. Actually, we recently support Quants worldwide. There's a blog post related with that. You can always go to medium.com, Samsung Internet, and actually you can check that. Please, if you can put the link there. There's somebody asking me if I can if you can share the link. I will. You can share that there. Also, I will share it myself in the meantime. Um, besides besides that, yes, we're gonna have con support. We also are going to have more blog posts coming soon, especially with PWAs. We are going to have a new internal project that we are going to announce soon. And also, we are planning to do different collabs also related with glitch and things like that. So if you have any topic in particular that you're interested in, and in the meantime, you can see our latest news here in Samsung Internet Dev. And in the meantime, what I'm gonna do is just to check if that somebody, that everybody has the link for our meetup. And in the meantime, I would like to first of all say thanks to our guest that is coming soon. We are going to have Maxim with us. And besides having some technical questions related with, of course, PWAs, service worker, what we're going to learn today is also about background services. I just want to mention that Maxim is an organizer of NGConf, is NG Vikings. And recently they have like 1,000 attendees around. So if actually you have any questions or you're curious about how to roll these live events or things like that, please bring your questions because I have a few ones actually related. So yeah, to start checking these, I hope that Maxim is there. Happy to see everybody. Okay, welcome. And of course, let's say welcome to Maxim.
Hello,
Hello.
good evening.
How are
Good to
you?
know. I'm very good. How are you?
Awesome. Super happy to have you here as usual. We're missing a lot to go around and just have a look in the stage and trying to interact with the audience. So I think we are trying to do our best to keep connected. and see what we can do, right?
Totally. Yes. Let's try to build proper interaction today. So YouTube live comments are for you folks. Ping any questions about PWA, about service worker, background services, support in iOS, whatever. And of course, yes, like Laura mentioned, I'm happy to answer all the questions about NG Vikings conference. Me and my team held earlier this week, Monday and Tuesday. Yes, that was online event at scale. So I'm happy to share all the best practices.
Exactly. So you're gonna talk today about background services. First of all, I have a comment here about your background that is like a Samsung Internet purple.
Yes. I have this lamp with custom color, and I did my best to mimic Samsung color.
Perfect. Well, I have a lot of questions for you. What we're gonna try to do is something more, a little bit more dynamic. So I will give you the space to um, try to start your presentation and see what we can do. But again, I have so many questions, not only in terms of background services or PWAs. So I would like to make this a little bit more interactive with the people. So please bring your questions. I'm gonna try to also update the meetup because I don't know why you're not able to see the link. So I'm gonna try to check that. Sorry about that. And yes, so first of all, I will give you the chance to introduce yourself before because I'm talking about you a lot, but of course you're the one here.
I, I have a special slide about myself, so let me just start the presentation. So let me switch to this. Okay, so background services of the modern browsers. Let's talk about this. And on today's agenda, let's go through what's ever available in the browsers and maybe slightly touch how do we start using all these superpowers. As promised, self-introduction. I'm Maxim Salnikov, and I'm a big fan of progressive web apps. I work in Microsoft as developer audience lead. Um, as you see on this slide, I'm like just igniter of PWA Conf, which we planned to have this April, and Laura is one of core team members. But for obvious reasons, we had to postpone it. But still, it's on agenda on our roadmap. So, folks, stay tuned. PWA Conf will definitely happen, online or on site. We'll see. Location, date, time, we'll see, but it's coming. um, I am a big fan of organizing developer communities. So PWA Oslo and PWA London is just two of meetups I run in total. And yeah, I try to gather folks both from web developer communities and from mobile native developer communities. This is why I also take part in two conferences. One we already mentioned, NG Vikings. Yeah, so I'm happy to answer the questions about this. And Mobile Era, it's the one for mobile developers in the widest sense. And I'm a Google developer expert in web technologies, in particular in chapter called capabilities and installability. So we recently had this specializations, and it directly related to today's topic, to progressive web apps and background services in particular. This is my Twitter. Webmax, are you? Please follow me. I mainly tweet about progressive web apps, modern web platform. I try to follow all the news. I try to compile the best of the news for you. And yeah, let's have a discussion on Twitter. My direct messages are always open. So any help needed, just ping me. Enough about me. Let's dream. What if we, as web developers, web front-end developers to be precise, could delight our users by something that we didn't have on the web before? For example, imagine that we want to build alarm clock application, purely web client side, and we don't want to get the signal from alarm to ring from internet, for example, via push notifications. Can we do it? If we are connected, can we keep the application itself and its data fresh somehow without any extra movements from our side as developers and from the user side, as like without any prompts, any reminders, any requests? Cool. If we jump back and forth from online to offline and back, can we have somehow resilient long downloads or uploads? And all this without user interaction. What do I mean by this? I mean that in all these cases, you don't have to even have your application tab open. So we are not just saying about not asking user to click something. No, it's completely fine to have your application closed and even your browser closed. And of course, in that sense, in case of closed browser, we are talking about some particular scenarios, and we are talking about the case when we still have browser background services running somewhere in the memory of our laptops, but it's default setting after all. So basically now both on Windows and on Mac, when you hit close button of your browser is not disappearing from the memory completely. This is how it works today. So we came to the definition of background services. What is this at all? This is piece of the browser functionality, which helps us to run code, JavaScript code to be precise. This code will have some interesting features. First, it runs in a parallel thread. Okay, good. We don't have to overutilize our main JavaScript thread where we mainly run our UI stuff. So we will keep our user interactions as smooth as possible, 60 FPS. But you can tell me, Maxim, we have web workers for this. Yeah, you are right. Web workers also run in parallel thread. Any other differences between web worker and background services? Yes, of course. And first, this is lifecycle. It's completely different from web workers have, and completely detached from the lifecycle of our main application thread. So basically, once we registered background service or code which run sent to background service, it starts living its own life, literally. So the application can come and go, can be loaded to memory, unloaded from memory, but this code will be invoked in completely different moments. Which ones and how exactly then we start this code? Not we, but events are starting this code. So not user, not us developers. Well, we like proxy our intentions. We are events. And so I look at these 3 points, and it gives me some analogy with phantoms or ghosts. Just imagine our main application is dead, but pieces of it. Of course, this code is piece of part of our application. So these parts are respawning from time to time. They live their own life, not that long though, and die. So yes, they are like ghosts, and then browser becomes a haunted house or house with ghosts. This is why I have this title of the session. Events. What kind of events can we have to wake up our phantoms, our ghosts? Very different ones. First, everything connected to the network, to the state and to the status of some operations. For example, if this download was successful or unsuccessful, or there is progress on this download, this is what I mean by the operation. Different time-based events. We'll have separate session about this. once invoked by our application backend. And yeah, of course, we are talking about push notifications here. And in some unique cases, we can even wake up the service worker. Okay, I mentioned the service worker, right? On our user's machine by the signal from third-party origin. Is that possible? Yes, in very unique, exotic cases. I'll have a couple of words about this. Well, if I mention service worker, yes, it's in the core of everything in this concept. No secret at all. So let's just illustrate one more time different sources of events and different kinds of reactions of service worker on these events, or not service worker, but the code we write in service worker. First, yes, a variety of events from the application, like for example, fetch, the simplest example. From the browser, yes, browser also can wake up service worker if we ask the browser to do so. Operating system, of course, proxied by the browser, but for example, when we try to understand are we going from offline to online, of course, it goes on the level of operating system somehow, but then proxied by the browser to the service worker. And all external world can send these events to do something in service worker, to wake up piece of our code. How can we react on these events? Also, many different options. If we have application up and running, the tab with our app, we can organize bi-directional messaging channel between app and service worker. That's absolutely possible. Or, for example, if the browser is not open and obviously our application is not running, it's our power to start the browser and open tab with our application. Why not? In some cases, we don't want to, let's say, over surprise user by starting the browser. We can just show notification in form of native operating system notification. Cool. And the most powerful thing here, and we'll put special attention to this, we can run custom code without notifying user at all, without letting user know that we run something, without showing notification, without opening the app itself. Sounds a bit scary, right? But let's start with listing components of background services. It's super simple to do. Open any Chromium-based browser, DevTools, application tab, and on the left-hand side, in the bottom, you'll see this block called background services. And basically, this is a list of what we have in a particular browser. I believe it was shipped to stable starting from Chromium 80, if I remember this correctly. And of course, every single pixel of DevTools is for some intention, right? And this list is not for us just to remember what kind of background services we have. It's super useful tool to debug these background services. I don't have a screenshot here, but you can just open this and have a look. On the right-hand side, if you click, for example, periodic background sync or background sync, you will see a pane where you can see events that came to your service worker. And if you hit record button, these events will be recorded for up to 3 days, if I remember correctly. So this is super useful tool to test and debug our service workers and the code we have for these background services. Because yeah, without debug tool like this, it's quite challenging to write the code, to write the proper code. But let's have a super brief overview of every piece of this background services, super brief, and maybe put special attention to a couple of them. Okay, let's start from payment handler. First, this is exactly the case where we have this unique scenario when third-party origin can install service worker from your origin on your on some client's machine. Yes, it's quite niche use case, and mainly we use this API and all this concept when we want to build our own payment service, completely web-based payment service. Now that's available thanks to payment handler API, thanks to payment request API, but still, maybe we can skip it for today since it's quite niche application. Background sync. I think it's in production since 2015 or so. So compared to many of these APIs, it's quite mature one. So we also will not put too much attention to this. When we use background sync, when we want to understand that this particular client's device just went from offline to online, and we want to, let's say, outsource this decision to the browser or to the operating system, we just want to rely on their decision. Why do we need this? In majority of use cases I've seen for background sync, it's just to propagate failed network requests. Maybe this is the main scenario for this useful API. And of course, it opens the doors to have completely offline ready analytics, when we can completely transparent for the user, gather all statistics we need, all the regular statistics you have, for example, in Google Analytics, and to make sure that once we get to online, this will be propagated. Of course, we have to write the code for this ourselves or use workbox. Background fetch is, there are two pieces of background fetch in my description. First is about detaching. It's about detaching the process of fetching data, downloading or uploading from the life cycle of our application. I mean, again, we can close the tab with app and still make sure that the download process will not be broken. So it's not, for example, like regular fetch, right? This is why it's called background fetch after all. So we detach it from app life cycle. At the same time, we attach it to the application, not the network operation itself, but the result we got after background fetch. What do I mean? And how it's different compared to regular click on the link leading to, for example, MP3 file. When we just download MP3, just like a regular Anchor, this file is becoming part of operating system, right? So it nothing to do with our JavaScript, our front-end application. But just imagine that we want to build a podcast web app, purely front-end driven one. Then background fetch is our helper. So we downloaded this. For example, we give the user possibility to prefetch some episodes. So we download this and we carefully put them into cache storage for later reuse or other kind of storage in the browser. So the data keeps is becoming accessible to JavaScript code of our application, which of course great new opportunity for the web. Push messaging, yes, just one notice about this. It's also quite mature API, but what I want to remind that folks, we can run custom code in push event of service worker, also not just displaying a notification. And furthermore, sometimes we have to do it. For example, if we want to fetch the data before throwing this data in native operating system notification. So it's, let's say, it's open some opportunities for misusing of this API, but let's keep this in mind. Of course, this is all like restricted by, for example, service worker lifetime, which is, if I remember correctly, maximum 30 seconds, at least in Chrome. But still, this is a bit more powerful API than we normally use this. But displaying notification is still obligatory. So there is no chance for us to run custom code without letting people know, without letting our visitors know. So what's left? Periodic background sync and notifications. Notifications is a good friend of push messaging, but today let's talk about a slightly different use of notification API in form of triggers. And both notification triggers and periodic background sync are somehow time-based activities. So in that part, they are similar, but maybe in all other senses, they are very different. And to explain you a bit more about these APIs, I gathered these differences into a table. So let's just go line by line and compare what's available and what's not. First, periodic background sync, interval-based, and the notification triggers just for one time, a one-shot notification, where we specifically set precise date and time, like just timestamp. So just I want to have this notification at this tomorrow at this time. Cool. What's possible to have in our, let's say, custom code or no custom code? Periodic background sync, we can do whatever we want. So once we received periodic sync event in our service worker, it's up to us. We can fetch fresh data. We can start mining bitcoins. Don't do this. But still, it's custom code. In notification triggers, it's super obvious. We don't even have to use. We don't have to add extra code for showing notification because we just register this, and showing web notification is only available moment here for us. Same for visibility. From the API name, notification triggers API, yes, and its nature to show notification, while periodic background sync is completely transparent, might be completely transparent for the user if we wish. So the combo of these three factors in periodic background sync gives us some warning. So once it's registered, it will run more or less forever based on some intervals. Okay, this is one. We can run completely custom code, the code we write as developers, number two, and user will not see this, number three. Sounds a bit dangerous. This is why all privacy and safety and security considerations are in place, and we'll talk about this. But for now, let's just notice that final decision on when to send event to service worker and if to send it at all or ignore or skip is on user agent on browser, right? In case of periodic background sync, just because we don't want developers to misuse this, to overuse this. We don't want to make our visitors, our clients, our customers unhappy, right? It's a bit simpler with notification triggers, so there is no such a strict limitation. So after all, we set the time when we want to see the notification, and most likely it will show up. You can say, yes, periodic background sync is way more powerful than notification triggers API in every single point. No. Periodic background sync makes sense only while we are online, and there are even extra limitations. The event will come to the service worker only when we are connected to the same network where we registered this sync. While notification triggers is working always. Actually, maybe this is one of the most interesting features of notification triggers, that it works offline. You remember that I mentioned this alarm clock, completely web front-end based and completely offline ready. Cool. And some prerequisites. Both APIs require some explicit permissions from user side. In case of notification triggers API, this is regular notification permission. So the one we request from the user when we, for example, try to subscribe them for push notifications. So it's the same, right? So the transport is notification API for notification triggers API. For periodic background sync, it's way stricter. I don't want to go super deep into specification. There are multiple options, multiple branches. I can say that for Chrome, the application needs to be installed. Luckily, now with help of web manifest and with help of service worker, we know how to properly install the applications, right? And all the modern browsers, including, of course, Samsung Internet, will hint user that, hey, dear user, this application can be installed, please click this button, and it will start living on home screen of your device, not in form just a shortcut, but as a full-scale application. Awesome. Some code. Yes, let's have a look how we can scaffold periodic background sync. It all starts with the registration in the main thread of our application. And by the way, I think we can even register this from the service worker. I didn't try it, but I don't see any limitations here. So if you prefer old gold background sync, not periodic but regular one, it's quite similar. But it all starts with feature detection. I mean, it's optional, but please, dear developers, don't forget to use this. Okay, we check this. It's in the browser, available. Awesome. Then we can register this sync, and we can give a name. So in my case, it's update content, and we can provide interval. But please be careful. This is not exact interval of this periodic sync, which will come to our service worker. It's the minimum. So basically, we only say to the browser, please don't send this periodic sync event more often than. Okay, fair enough. And on service worker side, we catch this periodic sync event by listening this, by add event listener. We check if the tag is proper one, because we can have multiple tags for multiple scenarios in our application. And then we can, after all, run something meaningful. In my case, this is imaginary method called update content. For example, just an example, if we create a web-based news client and we want to keep the news feed fresh, always fresh, right? And we don't want to ask user hit reload. We don't want to send push notifications saying your news were updated. No, we want to keep it transparent. We have the possibility now. But why do I have this saying, think before you think? Because it's our responsibility to provide proper user experience. And despite all these limitations browser set for us, despite all these security and safety considerations browser set for us, we can be even more careful about our dear users. So before running any code, if it's related to fetching some data from the network, why not to check connection type? Maybe we want to download this only on Wi-Fi network. Of course, maybe we can completely skip it if user in data saver mode. After all, do we have enough space on this particular device if we want to download something bulky? We are in full responsibility to do these checks. They are still optional, but let's don't forget about user experience in the core of everything. Very often question related to this periodic background sync API. After all, what is the exact timing we can get? Are we talking about seconds, minutes, days, years, whatever? Definitely, folks, it's not about seconds, so don't try to build your Exchange ticker up based on this API. No, it's for different use cases. And in the best case scenario, we can get 12 hours. You can say, no, I want to refresh my news more often. But yeah, I think this API was architected for some particular use cases where you want to keep the data fresh, but it's not real-time data, right? It's not about breaking news. And I think this is a good compromise, 12 hours in the base case. The default scenario is 36, even larger amount, right? And how it depends? It depends on site engagement index. This is some artificial index calculated by the browsers. Chrome calculates it, Edge calculates it, and it depends on how often user interacts with your origin, with your application, and for how long. So basically, this is somehow popularity of your application. The more often user opens this and spending lots of time, the more chance that you will get this 12 hours. As simple as that. And if the user once opened your app and forgot about this, they just I don't know, don't uninstall it for some reason, but they don't care about this, most likely your periodic background sync will never happen. And in this particular feature, web APIs are more flexible and more careful about users than APIs of native mobile frameworks. So this is what I can say. Awesome. Let's move on. Notification triggers. Completely different story, right? So we set exact time, and like always, we start from checking the availability of this API in particular browser. If I intentionally don't want to give you any information about where it's available, where not yet, because it might change while I'm speaking, and then there is no chance to post video of this session, right? Because this will be outdated. So, folks, do feature detection. Remember about progression enhancement, and you will be covered. We specify exact date, right? And then we say show notification like this, where we provide all the data straight away. And this name of property, show trigger, which is in this case timestamp trigger, it gives me hope that sooner or later we'll have another triggers for notifications, not only time-based, but for example geolocation-based. I think it's coming sooner or later to the browsers. Of course, also with all this privacy and security considerations. And you will see something like this in your browser. This is animated GIF I recorded in my Windows 10. So it's integrated well with native messaging system. So it's just a pleasure to use this. Then I decided to go a bit further, and I decided, can we somehow mimic the behavior of periodic background sync using notification triggers API? With lots of considerations and limitations, yes, we can, but it will work somehow differently anyway, of course. Still, let's try it. On this code, we do the same like on our previous slide, and we provide particular tag. We also can provide tags here for these notifications. Okay, and if in the previous example we don't have to write any single line of code in our service worker, actually this is a bit fun that you have to have service worker registered and running for notification trigger API. But for the simplest scenario, when you just want to show the notification and that's it, you don't have to write anything in this service worker. In this case, we have to, right? Because after all, it will be native notification exposed by notification API. And we have all the native listeners of user actions, notification click and notification close. And we can use notification click in that case. So notification trigger will show this message, and then after explicit user action, this is a very important difference from periodic background sync, but this is polyfill after all, right? Not even polyfill, it's incorrect term, it's fallback. After explicit user action, we still can do this update content, and maybe we can even launch the application if we want to do this. And at the same time, we can schedule the next notification trigger. So this is just my crazy idea on how to mimic periodic background sync using notification triggers API. The favorite question, availability and exact behavior of all these let's say cutting edge APIs in the browsers. I have long answer for you. It depends on many things, and you can check corresponding websites what's available where. So starting from completely different behavior on mobile device versus desktop device, and starting from the fact that some of these APIs are in origin trial mode yet. Okay, you will have all the information. And by the way, when I prepared for this session, I noticed that the data on browser compat data of Mozilla Developer Network is wrong about periodic background sync, because it was shipped to production starting from version 80. I immediately shoot pull request, and luckily it's merged to the master. So I believe on can I use, which is utilizing browser compat data, now there is correct information, hopefully. Okay, and if I call this long answer, of course I have a short one, right? And it's super simple. Just remember what P in PWA acronym means. It's progressive enhancement. So just keep this feature in mind and use feature detection. And do not build your core functionality of application with relying on these APIs. It's not about even time, right? In different circumstances, this will be available or not available, be having this or that, and you have to always check. Think about all these APIs like something on top, like something cool that you can deliver on top of your core functionality. Nice. Time to sum up. Background services, part of service worker API family, part of progressive apps idea. And the goal is to have first equality with what native code can do. And if you remember that I mentioned in some cases, we go beyond what native code can do. That's cool. Please keep in mind user experience. And I believe during architecting of these APIs, the architects, the folks who develop these APIs, they always kept in mind this availability, richness of the features versus what's required from user side to have these features, to get these features. All these annoying confirmations and all let's say security considerations, we can think about this like compromise, right? But I think that good trade-off was found. From our perspective, developer experience, I'm happy. We have great dev tools. It's all based on web standards, and I see bright future of this background services related APIs. And what I love the most, the fact it's just the beginning. If you check Fugu API tracker, I hope that as a PWA developer, you have this link in your favorites, in your bookmarks. There is a list of around 100 APIs more which are coming as a project, as a part of Project Fugu. It's like an unofficial name. More formal name is Capabilities Project on the web. To continue the discussion, join PWA Slack. We are thousands of developers there. We are sometimes active in our discussions, sometimes not too much. So you will not have extra noise from this Slack except, let's say, answers on your questions. And please share your knowledge and experience related to PWAs there. And on that, let's wrap up. It was my great pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Samsung Internet. Thank you, dear attendees. I'm super open for the questions. Laura, you are muted.
That was pretty obvious. Like, I need to improve my YouTuber skills because otherwise it always happens to me. I'm back. Well, thanks a lot, Maxim, for that great presentation. Besides that, I just want to share that Maxim is also one of the organizers of PWA Meetup, the London Progressive Web App. You can check here other events or things like that. We are trying to check what's going to happen with our PWA conf. But in the meantime, if you still want to learn about PWAs, as Maxim said, check the PWA Slack, check the Meetup, London Progressive Web Apps, and there's so many things going on around. So yes, I'm back. So besides, we were gonna wait for the people's questions, and let's see. I have a few questions for you related with these background services. One of the things that I would like to discuss is that you mentioned about web payments. Even though we weren't talking about third parties, web payments, some third parts background services, I also been checking that web payments can be other feature that it can be included into PWA, because we are all usually talking about how to do a progressive enhancements, right? Usually we talk about manifest file, HTTPS, and of course service workers. But what about web payment? What is your vision around that?
It's a great question. And so, do we want it or not? But commerce or e-commerce is one of the main driving forces of the web. So this is why I think pretty much every browser vendor is working hard on simplifying payments flow, literally to make it as smooth as possible. So nothing will stop you from successfully going checkout. Nothing will interrupt you, and all the payments options are here for you, or like well architected, safe, secure, and if I remember correctly, payment request API was one of the first from let's say service worker family, which was implemented by Apple for whatever reason. And I know that there are changes. So recently there were some updates in the flows of payment request and payment handler APIs. Again, into the direction of making them more versatile, more let's say flexible. Because after the first test, it's like some different scenarios showed up, and this is why this API was somehow re-architected. I'm not super deep expert in that topic. I know that it's there, it's evolving very seriously, and whole new section dedicated to payment is on web.dev website. And yeah, and on some of the slides you've seen this reference to web.dev and slash something something. Web.dev, this is one of the best resources for PWA developers, where all these features from capability, installability listed in form of nicely written articles. So let's say it's a successor of developers.google.com, also driven by Googlers. So yes, payment is coming, and it's here for long, just to make our shopping experience smooth.
Great. Yeah, I usually ask these because one of the things that we are trying to put a little bit closer to developers is a way to monetize their web apps the same way as we can do with native. So there are a few discussions around. There are a lot of information. And also talking about web dev, I want to share that there's going to be other amazing events that you can check. Is Web Dev Live, the website that Maxim mentioned before. You can find really great resources, and also there's going to be 3 days sessions around what's going on with the web, including PWA. So hopefully we can see each other there and see what's going on. So thanks a lot for that. Besides that, I don't know if we have any other questions related with background services, but I have other one. I have a lot of questions. What is your strategy when it's about background services? I know that it all depends on in what is your requirements, what is your final user experience, or do you actually feel that okay, I should make this as a priority? For example, I will put first everything that is related with my service worker to take care of the performance. Which are the kind of challenges that you find out when it's about background services?
It's all about balance. So after all, they are called background services for intention. So they are running in background, and that means they are running. That means they're consuming resources, right? Your CPU time, your memory, your network, and finding the balance might be somehow challenging if you want to keep your the battery of your user's device not drained by your service. At the same time, you want to do something. So maybe this is main like idea you as developer want to have in mind while you taking decision. Do you want to have this particular background service or not? And these services, they are so very different. So they cover so different pieces of your potential functionality. So like there is no one single answer to use background services or not. So it's a decision about what every particular API and maybe even every particular feature of this API.
Great. So we can find some resources to at least start checking and see that we have resources available for us to start using background services. Again, there are different kinds of, and actually we can have a track about what happened if we are using a specific one, right? What is going on with our performance and so on. Let me see if we have other questions here. Um, Diego is asking, does Microsoft have any plans of monetizing PWAs or anything more specific regarding to the Microsoft Store and PWAs? That's a good question. Yes, we would like to also know, right?
Yeah, so first, I'm not on PWA team of, and not even on Edge browser team of Microsoft, unfortunately. So I don't have exact information about this, and most likely, even if I was on that team, this all under ATA. But what I can say, Microsoft is one of stronger supporters of PWA. And if you watched some sessions on Microsoft Build event last week, there is couple of sessions about what Edge team does in that direction, and there are a couple of articles as a follow-up after this event. Actually, just before our show, I received mailing from the mailing list about like the status of web, something like this, with a couple of links to these articles. So let me yeah, after this event on my Twitter, I will share these links where you will read exactly what Microsoft achieved to the moment in PWA support, and many things. My colleagues are taking active part in developing new specifications, new APIs in form of web standards. For example, I know that they are heavily involved in multiple screens support. Maybe this is somehow related with new devices that Microsoft wants to release soon, these foldable things. I don't know. About Microsoft Store, it's actually first and only store. Oh, maybe not the only now, right? If I remember correctly, you can push now PWAs to Samsung App Store. But at least Microsoft Store was the first, not only to the moment, where you can actually push your progressive web apps without any need to wrap it into the native code. And if you search for Twitter app in Microsoft Store, this is PWA. So this is not code written in, for example, C#. This is JavaScript.
Exactly. Yeah. And just to let everybody know, we are working really hard to see what's going on with PWAs in general, and probably as a wish list, personal wish list, we would like to see PWAs in a good way so developers can share their apps easily to the users, and users can also use that happily ever after.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes, and for Android, we now have this interesting concept called TWA, Trusted Web Activities, which simplifies the process of wrapping our web experience to native experience, to scene native wrapper, to streamline this whole process. Let's say it's something similar to what we had in, for example, Cordova or PhoneWeb or any other similar APIs, but made specifically for proper connection between your web code and possibilities on hardware user device. So all like permissions are shared, all for example push subscription is shared. So the connection between PWA and hardware of your user is now can be achieved in a very proper and precise way, thanks to this concept called trusted web activities.
Great, thanks a lot for that. And last but not least, I would just want to share the developers Mozilla.org that when you can actually check the MDN documentation. Maxim was talking about MDN compatibility. Currently, we are working into this documentation. So if you have any feedback about what would you like to see, if there's any other topic that you would like to take examples or everything related with that, please let's keep in touch. So it's almost 7 p.m. here in London. Thanks a lot, Maxim, for having you here. And besides that, I hope to see you soon in any other event. Do you have any events coming up so we can let the audience know about it?
So what's coming next?
How many? Like 5, 7?
I think my main and large appearance will happen at local event. Oh, it's hard to say local events now, right? They're all online now, called NDC Oslo. This is largest event for Norwegian web developers, now for web developers worldwide, so it's for some thousands, and I will do some technical demos there related to new offering of Azure for static websites.
Great, great. So we're gonna share all of these links later so you can check this out. This will be recorded, so feel free to share this. And we hopefully are going to see you soon. And besides that, we hopefully are gonna have news about the PWA Conf. All these questions about what's gonna happen, about store, about monetize your web app and things like that. We are hopefully to bring this into discussion with our PWI Conf that actually we're organizing with Maxim and Majid that is over there. So yeah,
Hello,
thanks a
Madrid.
lot,
Nice to meet you.
everybody, and see you soon.
Bye bye, folks.
Bye.